Hey everyone, well we're going to be doing a little bit different video here again. Lately I've been doing my Saw of the Day series. Recently got some really cold weather here. Can't get out in the bush for a little while here till the weather warms up a bit. It's been brutally cold, so seeing here on YouTube lately here, different content creators have been talking about for a long time here now, of course, nothing new about chainsaw bars and chains and sprocket setups, and I thought I would throw my hat in the ring on this, so to speak, and put my opinion out there, and some of you agree with it, some of you won't, but anyways, this is my experiences, and I'm going to share what works for me and what I've found. And recently here I've noticed there's been some content creators here been making videos on, it seems, on stuff they don't even seem to even know what they're talking about. Now, that might sound a little risky, or me coming off as a smart ass by saying that, but I'm just sharing my real world experience, not theory, not my feelings on it, actual practical experience in working with saws, and do a whole bunch of different videos on this actually. Like I say, I'll cover specifically certain things about saw bars, specifically certain aspects about sprockets, combinations of bars and sprockets, different lengths of bars, different applications. I'll mostly just share what, again, what I know in my real world experience, not theorizing or speculating on what somebody else does on the other side of the world. Everybody, we all have our own saw setups and what works for us. Anyways, in this video, specifically, what I'm going to talk about is whether a person should grease your bar tips or not. Now, I mean the sprocket nose. Now, I've actually had some of you reach out to me recently and email me asking me what my opinion on whether or not a person should grease them or not grease them. And I am of the opinion that no, you should not grease bar tips. The more I greased, it seems the more the tips I blew up on saw bars, and I was going through saw bars back when I was logging on a more full-time basis several years ago. I was going through saw bars on a pretty frequent basis. I was eating up bars almost every 2 weeks. It seems I was blowing up a saw tip. It didn't matter whether it was a pro bar with a replaceable tip or if it was a middle-of-the-road semi-consumer one-piece bar. It didn't matter. I was blowing up the sprockets left, right, and center on the noses. So my local dealer says, geez, Stu, you seem to be going through a lot of bars lately. What's going on? I says, I don't know. I says, I greased the snot out of these stupid things. I said, and they keep, the bearings keep piling up, and the little sprocket nose on the end splits and comes flying out and is buggering up chains, and I'm always seem to be, going through bars, I seem to be eating through bars like crazy. And he says, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I grease them every second tank. And he told me, he says, you know what, just stop greasing. For full-time loggers and all the guys that he was servicing out of his shop, he says, everybody was told pretty much not to grease their bar tips anymore. He says, you'll notice a remarkable difference he says, you'll get probably 10 times the life out of a bar as you are now by greasing. So I took his advice. I put a brand new bar on and didn't grease it. Before you know it, day after day, week after week, month after month, finally wore out a bar after I don't know how long, but never blew up the tip. So I'm going to do a bit of a show and tell here. I've got a couple of buggered up wrecked bars. End result turned out different. Different experiences, different operators, different saws, but I'll show what happens with greasing and non-greasing of bar tips. This one here that I have is a Oregon bar that was made for still. This one, the guy greased it on a regular basis, always greasing it, and the end here, I don't know if you can see on camera, is literally all blued. And this bar had the greaser holes on it. It's got the little tiny hole here for the little pump gun that you have. And this guy assured me that he greased his bar almost every tank of gas. The tip on this one didn't blow up, but it got extremely hot and burnt. The little tooth sprocket in the end of the bar here has gotten worn so thin and so far down that it's dropped right down inside of the bar tip, and it's actually worn the groove. Now a bar tip, I'll show in a moment here that on a new bar, the sprocket actually sticks out a little bit, the tooth, and it carries the chain, and the chain does not make contact with the nose on a bar in good shape or a new bar. But the rest of the bar is in fairly good shape otherwise. He took good care of it the best he could, and the rest of the bar, it's not chewed up, it's not the grooves aren't chipped out, it's not splayed out. He dressed his bar rails, he told me, on a regular basis. He greased it thinking he was doing himself a favor and would prolong the life of his bars, and he was having problems with it, and I told him to stop doing that. Stop greasing. I said, put a new bar on, run it. Your oiler will oil enough to keep your bar tip lubricated. Now this comes back to some videos I've been seeing here lately. Some of the new bars that are coming out now on the market, all the manufacturers, as far as I know, are, for the most part, have pretty much stopped including these little greaser holes. You no longer can grease them. They're, I'll show right away what I mean. I have another bar here off of this is another Oregon branded bar made to fit a still. Is burnt literally the whole bar blue. Now this difference in this bar is the guy that was running this one ran a dull chain. Now that's a different story altogether. We'll get into that maybe in a later video. But he told me that he had never greased the tip on this bar. Now this bar also has the greaser holes here on each side where you can put grease in if you want, but this guy did not. Now look at the different sprocket on this one. I'll try and get it up closer and show you. See what I mean? The sprocket is actually still in good shape, and so is the internal bearing in here. This one's still okay. This bar has a lot of wear, heavy burr, and a very deep groove. He was overheating the bar constantly. He had this on an MS-271 still, and he cooked it. Now that's the other side effect of running dull chains. Get a saw hot and you will bugger them up. But he never greased his tip, and it's in good shape. The guy that greased his tip all the time on his bars, figuring he was doing himself a favor and he was going to save and get a lot more life out of his bar, burnt the tip, but yet the rest of the bar still has paint on it. Both these bars have a lot of run time on them. This one isn't salvageable because it's a one-piece bar, obviously. You can't change the tip, but it's buggered. The tip is wore out, the sprocket is done. This one, if I want to take the time and redress it, which I probably will, and I'll put it back on a saw and run it at some point, because the bar nose on this one, the sprocket, is still virtually unworn. Now if you look at this one that was just ran with bar oil for lubrication, and I have a new Husqvarna bar here, you can see that this one virtually has no more wear on the sprocket tip than this one does. Even though this is a new bar, this one only has a little bit of slight wear on it, but it's not far off from the brand new one. There's a couple of different YouTubers that posted videos here complaining that some of the new bars coming out here now don't have grease holes anymore on the tip. Years back I went into a dealer here when some of the new bars, these new bars were coming out on the market, and there was a sales rep there, kind of a dealer's day type of thing, whatever. I was picking up some parts, and I just asked the sales rep, I says, how come, out of curiosity, you guys don't put, I know I had already noticed that a lot of the new bars from various manufacturers no longer had the greaser hole in them, and he said the reason they weren't doing it is because bars were burning up quicker with grease in them than without. I'm not going to say what company or what brand, just that's what I was told, and I had already knew that because I had already been told that by my local dealer and also some other dealers that just out of curiosity, when I'd buy bars, we talk about longevity and stuff, and they were telling me the same thing and asking me what my personal experience was, and I told them I went through all this with, when I was greasing bars, I was blowing out bar tips left, right, and center, and they told me the same thing. They said, no, stop greasing and you'll your problems will go away. And I did. But there's a caveat to that. You got to also make sure your oiler's pumping lots of oil and working like it should, so that you don't kill your bar and chain elsewise. But anyways, getting a little long-winded here, getting on with it, I'm going to show a bunch of new bars that I have here, different brands, and all of them no longer have grease holes in them. Here we go. Starting kind of at the bottom of the line, I've got a Husqvarna, oh yes, the much maligned Farm Tough. They were hated for many years. I didn't buy them before, but I recently started buying a few of these when they come up on sale at different hardware stores. Why? Because recently Husqvarna started going to a heavy-duty 6-rivet tip in their baseline bars. They never used to do that. This is a laminated bar. It's got, if you can see here, it's got all the little spot welds all along here, but it's now a 6-rivet bar. Years ago, I think some of these used to be a 4-rivet bar, and then they went to a 5-rivet, and they had a horrible reputation for the tips on these blowing out all the time. Everybody knew that, even just for light firewood cutting. 5-10 cords of wood, and everybody I knew would blow the tip out of these Farm Tough bars. But the last couple 3 years now, they started making these heavy-duty 6-rivet tips, and I know a lot of guys have been beating the hell out of these bars, even in semi-pro logging circles, and these crazy things have been holding up. Now, what your personal experience will be, I don't know. I've run 1 or 2 of these now on one saw. I ran it for part of winter and spring, beating the hell out of it, cutting chipper poplar pulpwood. Yeah, it's still going. One of my favorite bars that's kind of become a standard, whatever, that I'm starting to buy more and more of are these Oregon Speed Cut and their VersaCut line. It's supposed to be a prosumer type of bar. It's an aluminum core, laminated in between 2 outer steel slabs, but these are not rivet or spot welded. They are glued. They use some sort of a weird epoxy or whatever that they stick these suckers together with. I've had one now going on 5 years on a couple of my smaller saws. I've run the snot out of it, and they are tough. The rails last, the tips don't blow out. These are only a 4 rivet tip that's like a reduced kickback type of bar, a very small nose on these Speed Cut bars. The VersaCuts just have a regular radius nose, like in the 3/8 anyways. They're like any of the other saw bars, no different. But in the 325 and the small bars, they have a very small nose on them. Very light bar. This is an 18-inch bar. Excellent bar. I am very, very happy with this. Very pleased. It has become my new favorite. This bar, along with the VersaCut. I don't know. I like them over almost anything else out there. Now, another one that's the X-Force bars is a 1-piece bar, and it is a little bit cheaper, prosumer, middle of the line. It's a spot welded laminate bar. It's got the heavy-duty 6-rivet nose on it, and these are also a very good bar. A number of years back, Husqvarna was getting their bars made for them by Oregon, but as far as I know lately, the last number of years here now, they've a bunch of their product sort of parted ways, I guess, and they're either making their own or getting some other no-name manufacturer making them for them, but they've changed them up and gone from a 5-rivet nose to the heavy-duty 6-rivet nose now on these X-Force. Like I say, the difference between the X-Force bar is it's a 1-piece bar, not non-replaceable tip and nose. Heavy-duty X-Tough bars, like I have here, have the replaceable tip on them. And as far as I know, the X-Tough bars, they are not a laminated bar. They're a 1-piece machine steel bar. So they are a heavy-duty bar. They are a bit heavy, but the tips on them are also a heavy-duty 6-rivet tip. So they're, as far as I know, what other guys have said, they are excellent bars. Getting into some of the steel branded bars, I don't have a whole lot other than I have a whole bunch of these, the good old standard Roll-O-Matic E-bar. These have been the workhorse for many people for years and years as far as the still line goes. Yes, they are also a laminated all steel bar. They've got the little spot welds here all along, so they're a 3-ply, but they're all steel. But they also have the 6 rivet tip, and they have been known for years to be extremely tough. Some of the bars I have are so worn that you can drop a 58 gauge chain in them and they work perfect. And they're still going, and the tips in them are tough. They, in the original ones, they would just last and last. The latest ones now, some guys are saying apparently the bearings in them aren't as good anymore. But so far, I don't know. I've had a couple of new ones and they seem to be lasting. Like anything, it depends what you use for lubricating oil and all that. And I'll get into that in a future video here about chainsaw bar lube and what not to use. What happens, and this was explained to me by the sales rep and by the dealers, and it makes sense. If you're greasing all the time, what happens is every time you put grease in here, first 3 or 4 cuts when you make, when you hit the gas and you saw revs up, centrifugal force, when this sprocket is spinning at a high rate of speed, what happens is it slings the grease out around the outer edge of the bearing and it makes like a grease ring. And what happens is it stops the oil from carrying down. And actually what happens is, or what they were saying was happening, it was burning the bottom edge of the rail because it was damming up the oil from going through. It would just sling off the end instead of getting carried around proper like it was supposed to. And the side effect also was the bearing inside wasn't getting any oil. It was solely 100% dependent on the little bit of grease that you'd pump in there. And if you only greased it, say, once a day and you were cutting 5 hours a day, that tip would get so hot that the bearing would fail and you'd have a catastrophic failure where the sprocket would split or the bearing would pile up and, well, and your bar is done, right? With the centrifugal force of the sprocket going around, it would sling the grease out just far enough around the outside edge of that bearing, and it would seal it from getting any oil into the bearing. Now, one of these YouTubers was commenting here on recently that I seen, he was saying, I don't know why Husqvarna's got a seal inside of here, or it's supposed to be a sealed bearing, and there's no oil's going to get in there. That's not how it works. These bearings, if you look with a real bright light here, like even this still bar that I have here, I was looking at it here earlier today. I had put a real bright light on it, and if you move the sprocket ever so slightly, there's always just a tiny bit of slack in here, and if you move it over just ever so slightly and you shine a real bright light down in here, you can see all the little roller bearings just inside of the edge of the sprocket here. You can see just the shoulder edge of them in there. So it is not, there is no seal in them, there is no sealed bearing for life. They get lubricated by your chain oil that comes around. Now, another part of good saw bar maintenance is using a pick and scraping all your crap out of your bar on a regular basis. Take the chain off, run it down the bar groove, get all the dirt and crud or whatever, all the old sawdust out, so that your oil, it gets carried down the rail like it's supposed to. So at least that way, your whole bar, not just the tip, but also your bottom, it's important. You got to have oil that goes all the way around. Can't just sling off the end, because then you're burning one side of the bar or the other. And that's the other thing. Make sure you rotate your bars on a regular basis. And one more tech tip when you're doing this, make sure to grease your clutch bearing, your little needle bearing there. When you take your bar off to rotate it, to sharpen a chain, take it off for whatever reason, give a little pump of grease in there, or pull the clutch drum off and physically lubricate it. Like on the stills, you have to slip the clutch drum off. Husqvarna's, you can, they've got a little tapped out hole in the end of the crankshaft. Not all of them, but most of them. And you use your little greaser that people used to have for greasing their bar tips. Use it to grease your clutch bearing. It'll save your clutch drums, your clutch bearing, and the crankshaft on your saw. Will all thank you in the long run. Anyways, once again, my video got way too long, way too rambling. Hope you folks got something out of all of this with me talking about saw bars and just my little pro tip of the day, or whatever you want to call it. Just a little tidbit of, like I say, some stuff that's coming up on the channel. I'll talk about drive sprockets, bar lengths, all kinds of stuff we can talk about, and I'll share some more of my experiences on that. Anyways, just like to say thanks again, everybody, for stopping by and checking out another one of my videos, and we'll see you all in the next one.